AEW was created as an emotional support promotion. And I truly believe that now that I think about it, because now their whole thing is trying to restore the feeling. And I wasn't paying attention to it at first. And then I thought about it like, no, it literally is about feelings. The people who felt WWE wasn't listening to them, the people who felt that Vince McMahon or Triple H or whomever disliked them, specifically Vince, and disliked the wrestlers that they liked. Even though a lot of those guys had great success in WWE, even though it may not have been long term as they would have liked. And a lot of these people who had an emotional attachment to other wrestlers from the independents and wrestlers from Japan, they was able to get something out of AEW because Tony Khan was willing to fund it. And now Warner Bros. Discovery is willing to fund it. And it is about feelings. It's not necessarily about a rational understanding of how professional wrestling works, the growing of the audience. And this is why a lot of their fans put their fingers in their ears and go la, 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 when you start talking about business metrics and different things of that nature, and why the company isn't growing with casual fans, because it's not about growing a business. It's an emotional support promotion. It is a teddy bear for certain kinds of wrestling fans. And I realize that now. And you know what? I'm not mad at it. I'm just now understanding it. Okay, so how did I come to this understanding? Well, for starters, I mentioned restoring the feeling. It was a big thing about restoring the feeling. And I was saying to myself, like, what is the feeling? What was the feeling that launched AEW? And I said, well, AEW can be considered a sort of revenge of the nerds. You know, the people who felt like WWE had outcasted them, that not giving CM Punk or Samoa Joe the run with the WWE title that, you know, Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar had. The people who felt like Adam Cole was held back in NXT. The people who felt like CM Punk never truly reached his potential during his time in WWE. The people who were disappointed in TNA falling apart because that was an emotional support promotion for a long time too. And it was the same thing with New Japan Pro Wrestling. All of these are various teddy bears in different colors for the wrestling fan who wants to feel seen and wants to feel appreciated. And most of these people realize that in a larger promotion like a WWE, you're the minority. And WWE doesn't always, and they cannot always play directly to your wants and needs. So if you want somebody like, I don't know, Adam Cole to be WWE champion for 2 years or something like that, but WWE is looking at Roman Reigns and saying, hey, this guy's selling a lot more merchandise, this guy's moving tickets, we're going to go that route, then you are going to feel like, hey, my guy didn't get chosen. That's really unfair. Here's all the great reasons why you should choose him. But then it's like, LOL bloodline. You know, your guy gets booted out of the company. You're like, wow, that's not fair. So he goes over to AEW and all of a sudden you're smiling. You're happy. It's a new opportunity. This is a place that will truly appreciate him. You get to see him have great matches and be in great feuds and have great storylines. And then a lot of that stuff does not pan out. A lot of it doesn't pan out. Now, WWE did them a huge favor in, I guess you could say, building the feeling back in 2020 when Vince was just releasing guys. And a lot of these people were beloved NXT talents like Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong and Malachi Black and all of these people. He was getting rid of them. Guys like Rusev. And it became all of these people who felt that Rusev should have been a top guy or Aleister Black should have been a top guy. And all of these guys were getting screwed by the WWE. And they're going to go to AEW and they're going to live out their fullest potential. AEW is going to be a success. It's going to shove this success down Vince McMahon's throat. And we're going to prove to him that we're enough. There's enough of us to carry a wrestling promotion. It's enough of us to make this thing work. And for a little while there, they had a good point. So from like 2020 to 2023, they were doing okay. You know, they continuously got new talent, and they were happy about that. They were constantly happy about people choosing AEW over WWE. Even if the person was fired from WWE and they went to AEW, or if, it's even better if the person quit. They were thrilled when Toni Storm quit, right? Because she made the choice to go to AEW and not work in WWE anymore. That's validation. That is a feeling. That's the feeling that they want. The feeling that is gone now is that talent no longer are choosing AEW. Well, Ricochet did. But on the whole, there's a lot of people who want to leave AEW. There's a lot of Tony Khan's decision making has been questionable. A lot of Tony Khan's decisions has led them to say Tony Khan's not listening to us now either. Well, now Triple H is listening to us, and Tony Khan isn't listening. So now this is a feeling. It's not necessarily true, because there was, at one point in time, Jon Moxley was their favorite wrestler because he chose AEW over WWE. And even though he was having mid matches and cutting mid promos in 2019 and 2020, it didn't matter because they still had such good gut feelings about him because he made the decision to leave WWE. He, wrote a book about leaving WWE. He continued to validate AEW. And it was great. Big thumbs up. But now they're not really enjoying what he's doing on screen. And part of that is because he started to criticize AEW in promos, on television, and off television. He started to really question whether AEW works. Like, he still, of course, supports the company, but there are issues that are undeniable. There are issues that he cannot avoid. So he started asking questions. And these were some of the same questions that the fans are asking. But now they're not really getting everything that they want. They still get all the indie stars that they want. They got Will Ospreay. They got Ricochet. There's going to be some other guys going to come over. Edge made the decision to go to AEW. He didn't stay with WWE. So it's not a talent thing. It is purely an emotional thing. A lot of these people were emotionally damaged by the CM Punk Elite issue in 2023 or 2022. They were greatly damaged by that. Most of them have never really experienced something like this before. They've heard about backstage issues before, but usually years after the fact, and they made a choice. The Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart. Well, we can all agree, and I'm talking about them now, we can all agree that we hate Shawn Michaels. He's a drug addict. He's an asshole. We're all Bret fans. So Vince made the bad decision, and he stuck with Shawn when he should have stuck with Bret. And that, of course, leads us to feel that Vince is always going to choose the wrong person. He should have chose Randy Savage over Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. He should have chosen our guy, not let our guy get fired. They never felt that any of these decisions were legitimate. Okay? They always felt that their guy was discounted. Their guy was forced out. Their guy was run off. But now CM Punk was their guy. And now CM Punk was being forced out and run off. Now, there were some people who reacted in a typical way. They saw CM Punk get run off and they quit. AEW, my attachment to that company is shriveled up and died at this point. There were other people who think that Tony Khan made the right decision, and their feelings have been validated when it comes to AEW. He made the right choice. He chose Hangman and Omega and the Bucks. He didn't choose CM Punk. But then he found out that the casual fans were kind of with Punk. That was kind of where they are. And now we're back to the hardest of the hardcores. But it's also 5 years later. And now we're even smaller than they were before. They run in smaller buildings. I believe the pay-per-views are about the same. So it's becoming a little bit more difficult for them to find an emotional attachment to the promotion. The complaints about the creative are just a byproduct of their newly tainted emotional state when it comes to AEW. So many of them were emotionally attached to the promotion. They loved it. They still hate Vince, and you'll still hear any chance they could talk about Vince, they'll talk about Vince. But when they talk about WWE now, it's about Triple H and how everything is so much better now. It's all rainbows and sunshine. Everything's great. He's listening to us. He loves us. He's willing to push our guys to the top. Oh my God, he's listening. Tony Khan, Moxley is one of your guys, but we don't want Moxley anymore. We don't really like MJF anymore. We don't really, we don't really like these guys as much as we thought we did. We like Hangman. We want Hangman to be a top guy. We want Swerve to be a top guy. Why aren't they the champions? It's like, your emotional attachment to certain people have changed. And of course it has. It's been 5 years. But Tony Khan has to listen to the cash register. He cannot necessarily listen to individuals on the internet who think Hangman Page should be the face of the company, because there is no financial attachment to Hangman Page, and nobody has really decided that it's Hangman or bust outside of the hardest of the hardcores, the people who already love the Young Bucks and who love Kenny Omega. Now, Kenny Omega is very much the heart and soul of AEW. He is very much the reason why the company works, because it was his reputation, mostly, him and Chris Jericho, that boosted the company through its launch and its first year or two. He got lucky and somebody like Moxley was willing to come over. Cody was willing to settle down in the mid card and do some stuff there. And then they got blessed with some talent, that Vince got rid of, the Aleister Blacks and Samoa Joes, etc. So that was able to propel the company for a while. But when you started to see the creative become discordant with the emotions of the fans, the emotional support promotion no longer supports the emotions of these fans. And now you see a lot of these people complaining. They're very mad. And I get it. I truly understand it. But it's now part of it, of course, is Tony Khan's fault. He just can't book. But he also could not build a promotion forever off vibes. It wasn't going to be huge debuts every month, dream match every other week. That was unsustainable, and it was always going to be. So, and people like me knew that, because I talked about that on this channel endlessly. You can't have an endless number of dream matches, and you can't have big debuts every week. They still have enough, because they did a good job with Mercedes and Ricochet and stuff like this. But they're still trying to book dream matches like Okada Omega and teasing Ospreay and Omega. But it doesn't hit the same. It doesn't hit like it used to. The excitement just is not there like it used to for these big dream matches, because they've tried this already. And this is a post CM Punk kind of bad energy AEW. So it took me some time to think about that. How can AEW restore the feeling? And the only thing I can say is the only way to restore the feeling is for Triple H to take his foot off the gas in trying to cater to the hardest of the hardcores with the way he books WWE product, which of course is going to eventually burn out the casuals. They're going to get enough of these 3-hour Raws and these 3-hour SmackDowns full of commercials and a bunch of guys with no charisma, matches and things with no storyline, and big shows with no angles and all that kind of stuff. They're going to get tired of it eventually. And people are going to get pissy at Triple H. But until then, AEW has to suffer through this storm of their fans looking at WWE feeling validated by what WWE does to a degree. They still complain a lot about, the length of matches, the number of matches, Roman Reigns' style, and that sort of stuff. But as long as they're their favorites, the Kevin Owenses and the Sami Zayns, and those kinds of guys are getting really good spots on the show, they're usually okay. They're willing to hang on as long as a guy like Gunther gets a good match on the show. They don't really care about much else. To them, that's being seen. Our guys are being pushed. That's what matters. What brought AEW to the forefront, I'll say it again. A decade of booing John Cena, half a decade of booing Roman Reigns, and those guys still being on top. That's what created AEW. They were these fans who hate John Cena and Roman Reigns and booed them for 15 fucking years. Those people were thrilled that Kenny Omega was going to get a chance to be a top guy in North America. They were thrilled that Moxley left, that CM Punk returned, that Danielson came over, that Adam Cole was going to get a chance. That is what the feeling was. That we don't have to deal with John Cena and Roman Reigns anymore. But now the perfect irony is that they're going back to WWE, where there's still John Cena and Roman Reigns, except they're in diminished positions. Roman doesn't wrestle as often. He's not featured as much. John Cena's a part-timer on the verge of retirement. So they can deal with those guys now. It's not Super Cena beating up their favorite guy every week now. It's not Roman Reigns completely getting pushed over their favorite guys. Brock Lesnar is not there anymore. So they feel like, okay, we got a chance now. We can get our guys in the spots. We can get some of our guys if we really focus and we push, we can get our guys to the top spot in WWE. It's a brand new day. Meanwhile, I don't think they feel that way about AEW. To be quite honest, they only really have two guys that they really back wholeheartedly in AEW, that being Hangman and Swerve, and neither one of them are anywhere near the world title currently. So the emotional support promotion has stopped engaging in emotional support, and that's why everything is down. But the only way for them to get that emotional support back is by WWE sabotaging what they do. There's some chances there. The hardest of the hardcores are pretty upset about Royal Rumble being in Saudi Arabia. A lot of them don't like that. That's always going to be a sore issue among the hardest of the hardcores. While the casuals don't seem to care, they'll watch the pay-per-view in the middle of the day, and then they'll move on. All of these other people who are going to write think pieces about it, they're going to be pretty upset about it. And they may decide to detach from WWE if they continue to do things like bringing in Hulk Hogan, like going to Saudi Arabia, outside of the two events that they've already paid for, but, giving them WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble and all this kind of stuff. And it's a deep concern for them that they will lose control over the promotion. And if they were to lose control over WWE, they're always going to fall back on AEW. And it wouldn't matter who's on top at that point, because they're going to be looking for validation. And that validation is going to come from somewhere. And it's going to come from somebody. And whether it's Tony Khan or not, it's going to be up for debate. But to me, I'm now really realizing that AEW is all about vibes and emotion, not necessarily about great pro wrestling. Now, it probably had some of that, and it had some level of intrigue and excitement because it was a fresh promotion. But ultimately, it was all about the vibes. It was kind of like, certain kinds of music where it has its time in the sun, and then it fades to the back, and it's replaced by something else. Sometimes you would see during, the era of, let's say, hip-hop, you would have like Master P and Cash Money and the Southern New Orleans sound would thump for 4 or 5 years, And then they start to struggle to sell records. And some of the guys who've been around for a long time, they start to heat back up. You know, the Jay-Z's and the Nas's and the R. Kellys and all these kind of people. And, you know, they kind of moved out of the way to let Master P and Cash Money make their dollars. But then, you know, the Snoop Dogs and all of those guys kind of came back. And that's exactly what happened here. You know, WWE took a step back. You know, they did some rebuilding. They had to restructure. Part of that was by design because they had to. They had to revamp NXT. They had to change that promotion. And then there was the forced change of Vince having to get out of there. And then Triple H having to manage Vince's roster. And then ultimately recreate his roster, recreate the roster to what he wants it to be. And then move people in positions that he wanted them to be in. And it took him a while. And he's still not fully there. But during that time, AEW cratered. Their style has plateaued. The fad element of the fresh new promotion has plateaued. And now the big dogs are back in play. You know, all it took for Triple H to get his pieces in place, and now the big dog is back in place. So, if you want to restore the feeling, and you're an AEW fan, you're probably preying on the WWE's downfall. And to be quite honest, if you pay attention, a lot of these wrestling newsletter guys, the guys who write articles and tweet all day about wrestling, that's exactly what they want. They want WWE to fail so that AEW can succeed. Because to them, that's what got AEW there in the first place. Because AEW was always seen as the promotion of the underdogs, where none of Vince's favorites can succeed, but the fan favorites can. A place where a guy like Eddie Kingston can be world champion. A place where, you know, you don't have to be 6 foot and muscular to be a world champion, where it was open to anybody, where you could be as tiny as Darby Allin or as weird as Danhausen and still be taken seriously as a pro wrestler, when you would have been degraded, maybe used and abused, chewed up and spit out by WWE. To them, that's what this place is. And it's gone away from that. So in order to restore the feeling, WWE has to fail, and you have to create new underdogs for AEW to believe in and to bring in. But they haven't done that either. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah. We're just gonna